Unleash the power of purpose with impactful business voices, hosted by Nancy Baki and Anita Larsen. Each week, you'll be inspired by stories from companies that are making a real difference in the world, and you'll learn practical tips on how to grow your business with an impact.
Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome back to those of you who have been here before to our Impactful Business Voices podcast. And if it's your first time here, every week we talk to a business owner that makes an impact in the world, in their communities, or the lives of the people around them. And we're here to find out what drives them and hope that it inspires you to make an impact in your business as well. So we are your hosts. I'm Anita Larsen.
And I'm Nancy Baki. Nice to meet you guys. Guys, today we have a special treat. For those that don't know Jennifer Anderson, she is the founder of First Responder Coaching. Really incredible. From the first day that I met this woman, she brings her unique perspective as a 15-year police wife and a seasoned coach as she brings this to the table, and she's really offering real life-changing support to our everyday heroes and their families. Guys, get ready for an inspiring and insightful conversation with her about tackling the mental and emotional challenges that are being faced by our first responders. It's really going to be an eye-opening discussion that you guys really don't want to miss. So, Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome, you so Jennifer. We're so excited to have you here.
I appreciate you having me here very much so. Thank you for reaching out and asking me to be part of this.
No, I think it's so important that we have this conversation. You have such a unique niche that you serve, and it's so important to all of us, to everyone. So I think we're all like curious to just learn more about your journey and, what was your experience and your background that made you decide to serve the first responder niche and decide that coaching first responders is what you wanted to do?
Thank you. I think you immediately hit the whole idea or concept behind first responder coaching, because at some point, everyone in our life, everyone is going to experience or come in contact or connect with a first responder. Whether you're going to the emergency room or you got in a car accident or whatever that may be, you're going to come in contact with first responders within your life. And so for me in particular, my husband was, as Nancy had mentioned, a police officer for 15 years. He suffered a mental health break back in 2018 that led to a full 6-week hospitalization. He was just incapable of adulting. He was struggled so hard with suicidal ideations and some really specific challenges, depression, anxiety, those types of things. And so as a spouse, I just had to sit back and watch that. As a spouse, I had been asking for resources, asking for support from his admin, the union, anyone who would listen. And unfortunately, there just weren't any resources in 2018 for real support of the spouses, family members moving through this. So, in my experience, I yes, of course, I hired a therapist and we were connecting great, but I also needed to figure out, with my husband not working, how we were going to pay the bills the next month, right? Yeah. How I was going to get our daughters to school, to dance. Our daughters were 7 and 10 at the time. And that practical application of what I need to do now to help me move forward is what I found in coaching. So I engaged in a 12-week coaching program, saw some immediate success, and felt that I was becoming the mom, the wife, the woman that I needed to be in order to support our family through this time, to help my husband rebuild his own life and our family foundation, our marriage. And so decided to become a certified coach. I became a certified life coach in 2019, and then just did some coaching, locally. I established Blue Line Coaching, initially connected to our law enforcement family. And I started coaching here in northern central Massachusetts. I got connected to the National Police Wives Association through my connections here locally. And fast forward a little bit of time after the January 6th event here in the United States, our Capitol Police spouses were in some serious need of support. And so I started coaching for Capitol Police spouses. And a number of them were like, we need more of this. Jen, how can we become coaches? What can we do to bring coaching to this community? And so I went back to the gentleman who trained me. And we created a full 12-week coach certification course. Again, there's lots of pieces, as Nancy I'm sure Anita is, again, in terms of coaching, that spectrum of how we define coaches and the certification process and licensing of coaches is varied, right? And so the course that we created is quite rigorous, and I'm really, really proud of it. So fast forward, I had a couple of coaches out of the Washington, D.C. area coaching other law enforcement spouses when a fire captain had been killed in the line of duty just outside Frederick, Maryland. And the fire chief came to one of my coaches and said, "Hey, I know you're supporting the blue. Can you come and help support the red?" And at that point, it was a total no-brainer, of course. So really changed our focus from blue line coaching into first responder coaching. So fast forward about two years now that we've been first responder coaching. We've got over 65 trained, certified through FRC life coaches. Thank you. In Canada, actually, as well as the United States. We have contracts with, a number of large departments, small departments across the United States to bring coaching as that proactive approach to health and wellness to prevent our first responder community from getting to that crisis mode. We all know, even as, civilians, even as, general population here, that our first responders see and experience trauma every time they, put on the vest, every time they put on the uniform, every time they go out for a call. And that builds up. So we are doing our best to create the safe space for difficult conversations, to again assess where we're at and where we want to be, and maintain healthy relationships, financial supports. Really, really proud of the work that we're doing. So thank you again, Anita, for that question.
No, that's great. Such an inspiring story. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
And it's, that is why we brought you today, because you make such an impact and not enough people know about you. And you said it. We all know some type of first responder out there, whether it's the blue, the red, the purple, the whatever colors are out there, right? And forgive me on the colors. It's like there's so many out there that you need. And there are no services out there that are specific for that.
Right.
Your personal experience that you had with your, as a police wife influenced you a lot in this. Were there any things that specific that you didn't mention earlier that said, like, that's what I need to do, other than your experiences? Because, like, everything happens for a reason, and it all came into your lap, and you're like, okay, I'm in the blue, and now I'm going to do the blue, the red, and everything, right?
Yes.
Anything you want to add on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, I did have quite the epiphany, when that, the fire captain had been killed, because for a number of reasons, I had a number of really strong thoughts in terms of the business, pieces. One, yes, right. Our entire first responder community. So thinking about a serious car accident, right? You have the 911 dispatchers who are represented by yellow, who are getting the calls on the other line. They're listening to you have one of the worst days of your life, right? And not being able to help, doing the best they can to help via phone, right? But not seeing the scene, right? Then we've got, the police officers who are the first, oftentimes the first ones to arrive. So they're experiencing the car accident, firsthand, trying to support, save people, pull them out of, wreckage and those types of things. And you've got the firefighters who are there, the EMTs, again, that show up and are there to support, that accident and help clean up. And you've got the, the EMS workers as they enter, the emergency room as people are injured or hurt, and they're seeing the aftermath of this tragic, car accident. Our military, we've got green on there. Obviously, we all know that our military in terms of PTS, post-traumatic stress, and the experiences that they have in their own, communities, and supporting our countries is vital. So they're on that, that color. And then gray, which is our corrections department. So unfortunately, again, within this first responder community, the corrections department, they are locked behind walls with these people who have committed horrific crimes, and the experiences that they have are incredibly challenging and tragic as well, in terms of the things that they experience on their jobs day in and day out. So the entire first responder community consists of those six genres of service that we offer service with and for, as well as the family members. Again, we can't exclude the family members as the spouse. It's incredibly important to me that we are reaching out to the family members to provide support as well. So
I'm so glad that you brought all six onto the, you know what?
Yeah.
We don't, as ones that are not in the first responder life.
Yeah.
We don't realize that there's so many out there because we don't utilize them all, right? So I'm really glad, because that's really eye-opening to us and to listeners and viewers as well, that there's more than we know that need help out there.
Yeah. It's not just the fire.
And thanking them for what they do for us and for others every day, right? So yeah, no, I love that.
Thank you. So that was my first. Oh, I'm sorry, Anita.
No, go ahead.
That was kind of my first epiphany. Like, okay, all of these different first responders have these needs and have these experiences. So yes, let's see if we can support all of them through coaching. What is that going to look like? So in terms of building the business, connecting with all of these, different facets of the first responder community has been just incredible, absolutely incredible. And then the secondary part that I just want to bring up, because again, talking about impactful businesses, was that oftentimes, therapists, coaches, other people who have the opportunity to bring services like this forward have to not only be incredibly educated, incredibly understanding of the job that they want to do and complete, but then also about the business building pieces, right? So if you become a clinical psychologist or therapist or whatever, within the social work realm, that's great. If you're going to start your own practice, that takes a lot of work to start your own practice. And so what I wanted to do and realized really quickly was to create this network of coaches that don't have borders in terms of our states, and even within the, countries in North America. And I wanted to do the business building for them. I didn't want individuals to have to worry about, marketing and, payment processing and payroll and because I would rather take that burden off of their shoulders. So that way our first responder community can immediately connect with a coach seamlessly through FRC. So our coaches are just a phenomenal group of people who, again, 24 hours, I say 24 hours, I can have any first responder in the entire North America connected to a coach. I'm really, really proud of that.
That's great. So I want to ask a question. Something you said earlier when you were going through this personally. You said, you had your therapist that you spoke to, but then you found a coach really helped you. So can we kind of define that line between a therapist and a coach?
Yes. Thank you so much for asking that question. So typically you will, seek out a therapist after maybe you've received a diagnosis of something like a PTSD or depression or anxiety, those challenges. You seek a therapist because they do have letters at the end of their name. They have experience and education and understanding of the way that our brain works in terms of, the chemicals and what's going on in our bodies, and they can give you advice, right? They are the ones who, very similar to like a mentor role, they are able to say, hey, it seems like you're struggling to fall asleep at night. Here are 5 ways to help improve your sleep hygiene, right? That's a new phrase, sleep hygiene, that you can utilize. we work phenomenally well with therapists, because then I would love that person to come back to a coach and say, hey, I just received, 5 ways to improve my sleep hygiene. What can we do? And then the coach's responsibility is to say, which one do you want to start with tonight? What are going to be some of the barriers for you accomplishing that tonight? What are some of the ways that you can incorporate that? Lots of different open-ended questions to help the individual determine what's going to be best for them and how they're going to implement that in practical ways, so they see a higher level of success in improving their sleep hygiene. Does that help differentiate a little bit?
The best that you said, which is how we work too in our business with our clients, it's you ask the right questions to make sure that at the end they're making that decision for themselves. And it's not like, hey, she told me to do that and that didn't work. No, let's find out, what do you really want with the information that you have? So
Exactly.
I love that. I love that.
No, and you have to have that personal accountability, right? That personal ownership of identifying. And we use many different types of tools. FRC has access to an assessment called the Stress and Wellbeing Assessment. About 6 months after my husband's hospitalization, I started experiencing PVCs, which is just an irregular heartbeat. And I'm like, I'm 38 years old. Like, why am I having heart issues? And I went in to see the cardiologist, and they did a stress test. And like, oh, well, it just seems like you're really stressed. What kind of stresses are you experiencing in your life? And I was like, you got a few minutes? Because I got some stories. Right. And so I was really curious about, how do we quantify stress? Because the stress that you're going through, Anita or Nancy, like, we all experience stress, good and bad stress, right? But how do we put a number on it for us that makes sense, that we can say, okay, here's our level of stress now, and here's where I want it to be, and how can we, again, move from here to there to reduce stress? And so that assessment has been a phenomenal tool within our coaching practice, because, again, it quantifies 8 different levels of stress and 4 different levels of well-being. So we can say, wow, in a 75 question multiple choice, assessment, takes 15 minutes to complete, your relationship stress is really high, and your ability to cope and adapt is really low. Let's have some coaching sessions around these pieces. Where are you now, and how do we help you reduce that level of stress?
So as you mentioned, stress is obviously one of the issues that this community struggles with.
Yes.
Greatly. What are some of the common issues that you feel you as coaches help first responders and their families with?
Yeah. I use sleep as an example. Absolutely. Sleep hygiene is by far one of the number one challenge for a lot of our first responder community. I know my husband in particular struggled with nightmares, significantly struggled with nightmares. Again, anxiety, right? Going into certain situations and not knowing the outcomes. A lot of the challenges are, again, unfortunately, as much as we'd like to leave work at work, it does overflow. And so challenges within relationships, within marriages, relationships with children. I actually know too many first responders who have estranged children because they, were working as much as they could to provide for their family. And unfortunately, the family couldn't communicate about that. And so unfortunately, estranged children are actually a pretty common challenge in the first responder community. So, again, diet, healthy eating, like all the whole cancer risks. Cancer is a huge challenge when we have conversations in this first responder community, because if the body is experiencing higher levels of stress and the cortisol and all the that the body does to cope with the stress levels, over time, break down your immunity, break down your ability to fight certain pieces. And so unfortunately, our, organ cancer is pretty common. Heart challenges. You hear about our first responder community, 14 months, 2 years, 3 years out of retirement are dying. Well, they just spent 25 years, 30 years in a career. Finally, they're retired and they don't make it, a few years past retirement. So those are the challenges that we see on a regular basis that we're supporting our first responder community through.
It's so important to discuss this mental health awareness amongst, this
Absolutely.
community. Some people don't find that it's important to discuss it, or maybe they don't understand the importance as well. I believe you don't know what you don't know until you meet somebody that teaches it to you, just like when we were born, the ABCs, right? It's the same thing till the day that we are off this planet, right?
Yes.
Can you discuss that importance of mental health for those that know it, that need more, and for those that don't know it, that to know that they're not alone?
Thank you. Again, they're not alone. So there has been a huge shift in this first responder community. If we think back to some of the shenanigans that went on in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even early 90s, in terms of the community, the cop bars, the fire bars, the whatever, the community that it would, at the end of the shift, sit on the back of a fire truck and pop one open, right? That community, unfortunately, with our conversations around, the necessity of sobriety and having conversations about alcoholism, those interactions have extraordinarily dwindled. And it's not necessary to have the alcohol be the reason why we're creating the community, right? We have to separate that. But we have to create community. We have to have the open space, creating the space for those types of conversations to help us mitigate those traumas that we're experiencing day in and day out. So a couple pieces to that, Nancy. Not only has FRC created a nonprofit branch, we've created a first responder coaching foundation in order to support our first responder spouses and family members. We are having conversations about, let's bring this community together, boots on the ground, having, peer coaching sessions, having peer support programs that utilize coaching resources in order to, again, bring that community feel back within the first responders, because they're very closed off, right? They're very, suck it up, buttercup now. Like, this is just the way it is. And it's like, no, we have to. And I'm actually really proud to say that many of the people, and again, I firmly believe that we're in the right place at the right time, surrounded by the right people. But I'm very proud to say that many of the people that we are working with, the contracts that we have developed, are changing that perspective. Are seriously taking a look at themselves and recognizing, within themselves the challenges that they're facing and doing something about it. Young guys as well as, veteran.
That's
veteran
great.
officers. So it's been an uphill battle, but one we're willing to tackle, and we will continue to fight.
Because I would say, some of those groups are definitely not very open, and they're very guarded and private, and I would think not necessarily easy to get through to either.
Because they've experienced things that they don't feel like other people should have to experience. And that was one of the things with my own, I learned more about the calls that he went on and the things that he saw and experienced from the multiple reams of medical documentation that I had to read and prepare for his medical retirement than I did for him in 15 years.
Yeah.
I knew some things. I knew a couple of the tough calls. I'm grateful because we were able to communicate about triggers, some of the things that, when we talk about, PTSD or PTS, he experienced a really horrific situation in which a bunch of different chemicals were put into a bucket and thrown. And so he still very much has an adverse reaction to strong chemical smells. So I knew some of the bananas. He had a situation with an infant call, and he had to perform CPR on an infant. And unfortunately, the formula triggered a memory of potassium and bananas. And so for years, a decade, we didn't have bananas in our house because he couldn't process. It was really hard for him. So through learning through his hospitalization, through understanding that there are modalities out there. Coaching is creating that toolbox that we put all those modalities in. So as people are moving through their career, they can say, oh, wow, this was a real challenging trigger. Okay, let's look at some of the tools that I have access to. EMDR, eye movement, desensitization and reprocessing is a phenomenal resource. There's so CBT, right? Your cognitive behavioral therapy. There's so many resources that are available now. Even things like breathing techniques, Wim Hof breathing techniques, ice baths. Ice baths are now becoming this whole movement of everyone's looking at ice baths. How can we decrease our parasympathetic reaction and response, increase our sympathetic responses in order to make sure that our bodies are processing the stresses to be as good as we can, as human as we can, and as open as we can about the things that we experience.
What do you think is maybe some of the misconceptions that the public or society has of the mental health of first responders? And I'm sure there are misconceptions out there. We all have our own thoughts and beliefs. And what do you see?
I am going to choose my words wisely. I feel very strongly, and this is just, again, through my own experiences, that sometimes we see situations, whether it's via the news or social media, in which I firmly believe the challenge within those situations comes from the mental health of the officers, mental health of the responders, than it does particularly for other media-led beliefs. Because we don't know, as we don't understand if a situation that is occurred similarly a month or 6 months ago, and there was a different outcome.
Right.
And that officer, that person, that responder didn't want the same outcome. And so they handle a situation differently because that's what they've been trained to do. That's what they know to do. And as outsiders, there's absolutely some common misconceptions that they are superhuman, that they shouldn't have feelings. But when you're going up to knock on a person's door to just tell them that they've lost a loved one, how can they not have feelings and emotions? And they have to bottle that up. And then where does that go?
I think what strikes me sometimes when I see these videos, and I was like, the amount of patience that they have to have sometimes in dealing with the public, because I think you're 100% right. I think the public has this belief sometimes that this is a community that's like superhuman, but they're really not.
No, they're human. And that's one of the things I try to stress with them too, is you are human, and therefore humans are allowed to feel. So let's not continue to push our feelings aside. And yes, again, coaching is not just sitting on a couch talking about feelings. If you want to talk about them, you're more than welcome to. But it's all about, again, identifying where you're at and helping you move forward. So, how we experience things is critically important. And for them to know, again, they're not alone. Any first responder, community member out there, spouse, please, you are not alone in the challenges that you're facing. I almost lost my husband to suicidal ideations. Like I know the stories out there, and in all honesty, you look at statistics, we're losing more first responders to suicide than we are in line of duty deaths. So change needs to happen. Cultural change needs to happen. And I'm proud to be on the forefront of that.
I love it. There's, again, coming back to the first responders, they're struggling so much. Some are alone. Some don't even have spouses to be with, right? It's so sad to hear that the suicidal is increasing. It brings tears to my eyes. The ones that are bringing their strength, their patience, like you said, their want to help this world in a different way. What advice would you give those that are really struggling with that stress, with that mental health issue, and any other, whatever else that they're going through. It could be just waking up in the morning. I mean, listen, when you said that story of going to say, tell a wife that, what happened to her husband, it could be the police officer that's walking into a house and needs to take a child out of the house because
Thank you.
for whatever, right? There's so many different situations, and you have to be ready no matter what's in your space to walk into there and say, my job is to do this no matter what is around me, no matter how much stress and anxiety it's going to give me. I'm going to need to, right? But I need to deal with that part when I go home.
Yes.
After I take care of my purpose, right?
Thank you. Right. Again, so for example, the infant calls or the child, the children calls are so hard because so often we go home to our families and our children, so how do you not see the child's face of the situation that you were just in previously in your own child, right? And how do we, getting goosebumps, thinking about some of those things. But as a general population of people, we don't always think about the implications of the challenges that they're facing, the car accidents, and then, you don't buckle up when you get into the car. What? Put on that seatbelt right now, because that person has just experienced a horrific car accident, knows what happens when people aren't wearing seatbelts. So some of the reactions or the responses from our first responder community, we might not necessarily understand. And the patience, as you mentioned, Anita, right? Like they have to be so incredibly patient with when dealing with public, but it's their, it's because of the experiences that they've had that they have that knowledge, and they will be patient because it's important for people to know what it is that they're, that they've the experiences that they've had. So if they're, on a call and people aren't listening, or they're not hearing what's being said, or they're not communicating effectively, there's a lot of the patience that needs to be from our side too, right? From a spousal side. Again, a lot of the first responders don't share because they don't want the spouses to relive or see or imagine or feel some of the things that they experience as well. So I guess overarchingly, Nancy, to the advice, the thoughts, that the message here is that, again, you're not alone. Our first responder community is massive. And, as much as I want to continue to say, reach out, I know that reach out doesn't have to just be like, I need help. Reach out can be like, hey, hi, Jen. I saw your podcast. I saw your website, came across a post on Facebook. That's all it has to start with. It doesn't have to start with, I need help. It can start with a hi. So that's, I guess, a message that I'd like to share to this community at large of resources are here. We are here.
I like that you say that, Jen, because it's so important. Some people are sitting alone and they're like, I don't want to talk to nobody. They're not going to understand my situation or whatever is going on there, right? And it's so important that they know there is a space.
Thank you.
And I mean, I had never spoken to one of your coaches. I've always been speaking to you for the last, little while. And you're awesome. You have a beautiful heart. So I could just imagine the people, the awesome coaches that you have that have that same type of heart.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just going to say it for you. I mean, guys, women and men, don't be alone. Give her a shout. Like, don't even if you're just breathing, just take that first step, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we're doing as much as we can to be that proactive piece. So instead of just expecting all of, the people who are struggling to reach out to us, we're constantly doing outreach and putting up posts and blogs and connecting to departments. And so we're doing the best that we can. We're coming for you. It's going to be okay. I promise. And, again, I'm sure you'll be posting my website, my personal phone number. I will give it out to you right now. Well, I shouldn't say personal, it's my business phone number, but still, 978-616-7989. Text me, hi, and we'll go from there. So I just thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate the platform.
If you still have a few minutes,
of course.
Anita, do you have something?
I wanted to ask, and I think we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but we talked about the public and how the public maybe doesn't see first responders the way they need to as humans. So what can we do as the general public? What can we do to help first responders and treat them better, I guess?
Yeah, right.
Right?
Thank you.
How can we support them better?
Well, no, and that's a great question, because yes, we've got law enforcement appreciation day, and firefighter appreciation day, and so people are like, oh yeah, okay, this is a day we'll do something nice, and I think it's phenomenal. But in terms of general, again, thanking an officer, having bottles of water in the back of your car that you pull up to an officer who's on a street detail, or they're out hot, the hot sun, and handing them a fresh bottle of water. Writing thank you cards. If everyone, again, everyone is going to have an interaction with a first responder, and again, hopefully it is a very positive one. And unfortunately, does it always happen that it's a positive experience because of the challenges that you might be facing, which is why you've called the first responder. But the thank you cards go so far. Stopping by the station, saying hello, shaking their hands, paying for a coffee. I mean, it's just
showing our support that we're there.
Exactly, Anita. It's the small things that go so incredibly far, that mean the most. It doesn't have to be a grandiose gesture. Just something that, in the thought, in the moment, being seen, being aware. And so funny, because they try to hide in the corner, and they're trying to, so because they're stared at, right? They're looked at. This guy's got a gun on, he's got his vest, he's looking really, or she, she's looking very intimidating. But they're humans. They're just another human. So that would be my suggestion, Anita. Those little small pieces of acknowledgement goes so far.
I love that. Any additional types of changes that you would like to see in how the first responder organizations address mental health and stress management? I mean, there's many that probably don't know you, right? And that need you desperately, and they may not even really know that they need you because they don't know that you exist.
You're very, very true. So accurate in what you just said. There are now, moving forward, since 2018 and the challenges that I experienced with my husband, there are some amazing resources out there for crisis within the first responder community. There are some incredibly well-vetted organizations that do work specifically with the first responder community. I've got some amazing partnerships with organizations across the country that provide different resources. First Responder Resiliency Inc. Shout outs. Harbor of Grace is an amazing organization as well. We have such a great community of organizations that are popping up now specifically for our first responder community. Again, on that continuum of care, right? So we kind of have to start, where are we now? And that's where kind of coaching comes into play. Where are we now? Are we more toward a crisis situation? Do we need to have resources for substance abuse or for, again, mental health challenges? What does that look like, and how can we provide resources there? Or are we just starting to see some trouble in our marriage and we're not communicating effectively, and we need to have some support about communication skills and learn, tap into some of the tools that we can provide through coaching and support that way. It's phenomenal to see this community really coming together of culturally competent. I can't stress that enough too, right? Of culturally competent people who understand what it's like to be within the first responder community, because they're so guarded when it comes to talking to people who are not competent about the first responder experience. And so again, first responder coaching, to be honest, in terms of the business model here, is totally unique. We are the only network of coaches that has built out across the country. You have individuals who are doing some amazing coaching within the first responder community. A.K. DeZanti is phenomenal. She's a huge resource, a huge hero of mine. Again, doing some really great, John Kelly, doing some really, really great work in terms of bringing coaching to our first responder community. And then again, ours as the network of coaches.
That's great. I know we're like going over time here, but I want to give you a chance to maybe share a story with how your coaching has really had an effect on a first responder or the family.
Okay, just one moment. I need to get something I keep very close to me. So we're going to call this gentleman Ray.
Okay.
I was at an event. We do an event almost every month across the country. We are traveling regularly to attend events and share stories of what coaching is and how it's beneficial to our first responder community. And I was out in Connecticut and at this EMS conference, and I don't want to give out too much more information, but I had this gentleman, Ray, came up and had a conversation with me. And one of the things that he said was, I didn't think I was that bad. I didn't think I deserved
Goodness.
the resources, because there are so many other people who are suffering worse than I am. There are so many other people who have experienced so many other tragic things that he didn't feel like he was worthy of getting the support that he so desperately needed. So through just a very brief coaching session, we were literally standing in the middle of an aisle having a conversation, and I asked him some questions about hobbies. I asked him some questions about his family, his support system, what he enjoys doing. And he told me that he really enjoys blacksmithing. It's 2023. What blacksmithing? What does that? And he said, that's my safe space. I enjoy it so much. I get in there and I get in the groove, and it's so empowering for me. And so I, through those conversations was just like, great, then keep that up, right? Keep doing what you're loving to do as your outlet, as your resource. But through our conversations, he acknowledged the fact that he did need support and he did deserve support. And so he reached out to his community, his chaplain. He reached out to a number of people in his life to support him. And the next day he sought me out, found me, and presented me with a hand-forged bottle opener. So I keep Ray's story close to me, right on my desk every day, as a reminder that this community is so deserving. This community is in such need and is so special to me.
No matter how big or how small the situation is, no matter what you've been through, whether you think it's that small compared to somebody that did that big, yours is still such an important one, because your purpose for whatever you're done is not finished.
Thank you.
You have other things that you need to do, but to be able to help others, you have to help yourself to be able to get there. So I absolutely love the story, and I know you've got another 3 gazillion of them.
I do.
We can continue.
I had to share that one, but you're absolutely right. There are so many. There are so many impactful stories, and I'm very proud to have been a part of.
Yes. Thank you for today, Jen. It has been.
Thank you.
Yes, it has been really a magnificent podcast today. I can't wait to talk to you more and really see how we can help you go and help more people that need it, right?
Help them, right?
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you guys. Again, I truly appreciate the opportunity to share FRC and our work, and looking forward to, again, continuing conversations. So thank you.
Super. So we're going to put you backstage for a moment, and we'll come and join you in a minute.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate you.
So that was a great conversation.
Oh, yeah. And I know we could have kept on going.
Oh, yes. This could have gone on and on and on.
Yeah. No, it was, we do that a lot. But this one touched my heart, because it was, again, we don't realize that they're out there doing their work every single day while we're in our own life, right? Exactly. Even if we don't personally see the ambulance and the police and the 911 personally in our days, there are many that do see them, and their life every day.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't forget their families. Yeah, we see that. I mean, just on Christmas time, I saw the fire the fire trucks were out, collecting money to help support them, and it's like they're out there in the -20 weather, with all their heavy gear just to go out there and help families. Right? It's just, it's breathtaking.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody that has a first responder in my life myself, it's so important to, I think, yes, of course, support them. And I love what Jennifer said, just show your support,
Yes.
don't look away or walk away, but show that you appreciate them and you're there for them. And I think also, like we talked about, they can be guarded and not necessarily open up, but understand that that doesn't mean there's nothing going on. There's so much more under the surface that you have to be able to bring out and talk about.
And that they may not even know until they talk about it.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean they want to talk about it with you. They may want to talk about it to Jennifer or 100%. One of her coaches. That's you get the objective party that's not as close to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I loved that Jennifer shared their number one challenge out of all her clients and coaches' clients that she's seen. Their number one challenge was their sleep hygiene. We don't even realize that's what they go through. I mean, with all the situation, I mean, they have to go home and sleep.
And it's funny, as I see it from like almost two aspects. And we talked about the one was, of course, all the trauma they experienced and nightmares and things like that, but also just from the practical aspect, the types of jobs they do and the types of shifts they work. They can vary greatly. You work nights one day, you work early mornings, then you work evening, afternoon, and you don't get into a regular sleep pattern. Like I see that a lot. So, and that's on top of the trauma. So it's
absolutely. And something that we all should keep our eyes open, she said, and it's so important, stress. I mean, stress kills. We all know that, no matter what business that we're in and what 100%. We do. But especially them that they're in, high stresses consistently. She was talking about cancer and this and that, and there's so many other types of diseases out there. I think this is a message that I'm passing really to just everybody, not just the first responders, is we need to lower our stress. We need to eat well. When we don't know how to lower our stress, let's speak to somebody that can help us understand it so that we can do what we need to do to have better days, because we have to decide how to have that day. We make that day better, no matter who's in our surrounding, right?
And I think that's almost something that, again, keeps coming back to our podcast episode, is the self-care.
Yes.
You have all the stress, you have all the things you deal with every day, no matter what position you're in, what industry and what you do, but especially for this community, take care of yourself. You can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself.
Absolutely. And I think lastly, just for the first responders, and for anybody, but specifically first responders, go and create a community. Have that open space somewhere to speak to somebody that you can be not judged. Just to be able to litigate that trauma that you're going through. Jennifer said it so well. Create that community around you. Even if you're just going to send her a quick text and say hi, just go from there. Whatever that you feel guided to do. But know that with all the patience that you have, with all the strength that you have, with the big heart that you have to do what you do, don't let nothing stand in your way to not just do your purpose, but to help you with where you're at today, wherever you are, and just know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Right? This was awesome. So guys, make sure that you keep in touch with Anita and myself. Come and learn about what else is going on. Opportunities with additional information to learn from us and from other people, of course. Don't miss out on our future episodes. Every single week, we have an incredible business, nonprofit or business that, helps impact this world. So guys, you can find a copy of this recording on our YouTube channel at Impactful Business Voices. Support us by clicking the subscribe button so you can get a notification every week, Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We're always there.
And we want to give you a sneak peek into next week's episode. It's the end of the month. It's a monthly Business Lounge special. And this episode is really close to my heart because for most of you know my background. This is so important. And we're going to have a crucial conversation that every entrepreneur and business owner out there needs to be a part of. We're going to talk about choosing the right consultant, coach, or agency to work with, safeguarding your intellectual property, protecting your critical business assets. Stay safe. Don't give away your business to somebody that you don't know. And I think especially today and the work environment we're in today, I think it's a lot of people have just kind of learned the hard way, the pitfalls of outsourcing, whether they kind of lost control of key assets of their business, if they kind of become hostage to technology that they don't own themselves, that other people own, or they just kind of fell prey to inexperienced or ineffective people that they thought were going to do a great job for them and didn't. So mark your calendars for next Tuesday. We're not just going to share stories. We're going to give you practical, actionable strategies to make sure you partner up with the right people and keep your business safe. So we wanted to make sure we had this episode as soon as possible because we actually see this a lot with our clients when we start working with new clients, and we see elements of this. And I think pretty much everyone we work with. And we want to help small business owners succeed and grow their business wisely and securely and keep their business.
Yes.
So with that,
I'm excited for that one. Until next week, guys, go make it an impact.